program, but also the classrooms. We believe the classrooms will finally become 21st century, where students are engaged collaboratively and cooperatively in deciding and building content. We also look with a great expectation for what will happen around the region. Being a part of the regional team for implementing this curriculum across the Caribbean provides the opportunity for us to learn from each country involved, but then also to influence the changes that will make a difference for the quality of education coming out of the Caribbean. ICT CFT curriculum really addresses many of the areas of need that our teacher education currently has. We are very excited about this.
And we showed you Dr. Phillips on video and in person, only because we can't get enough of him. So, indeed. But that's essentially how the learning environment is changing these days in Jamaica, because you're going to get your teacher on digital, and you're likely also to get your teacher in person. The former more so as we enter the era of the fourth industrial revolution in Jamaica. Looking though, Ative Ennis, as an innovator, from where you sit, how joined up are we, not only from a policy perspective, since we have policymakers in the room, but also a connected sector perspective, meaning the education sector is moving towards the fourth industrial revolution. What are we doing in other sectors in Jamaica to sort of join things up? You can speak from the technology side, and because of your broad experience, you could also connect the dots with the other sectors. Is the education sector the forerunner in all of this, from where you sit?
I would like it to be, but I think aspirationally, there are a number of great things that are happening. For example, I listened on my way down to a very interesting discussion around Jamaica establishing, as part of the JSC, Jamaica Stock Exchange, a Jamaica Social Stock Exchange. And what that means is a lot of NGOs and foundations and charity groups that want to support education to augment what the government is already doing has been skeptical primarily, especially in diaspora, has been skeptical primarily because they do not think that the governance framework exists to monitor how their money is being spent. With this kind of approach, what will happen is that you can list projects. So say, for example, I want to build a content aggregation entity that will support and capture the mind share of teachers who have been in the classroom for a very long time, who have wonderful experience, but there's no way to curate what they know. This now becomes a project that we can now list on the social exchange, and people can fund it if they're interested in that kind of initiative. If we want to adopt an early childhood education institution, for example, or a primary school that I grew up and I benefited from, I can now be a part of the ecosystem. Where we come in is we want to lead from ensuring that persons have the mechanism, the platform, the tools to be connected as part of this ecosystem. And some of the work that we're doing, for example, in this particular space, involves breaking it down into three main areas. From the administrative and management side, we're working very closely with the ministry to ensure that the information and the management of the physical plant itself is being done in an effective manner, where from being able to manage your teacher population, to manage student attendance, to manage online examination, which we're hoping PEP will get to very soon in 2 or 3 years' time. All of that is in place. From the access standpoint, we have 2.1 million mobile phone users in Jamaica. So we're bringing the parents into the ecosystem along with the students, and we're leveraging that platform to be able to deliver content in a very important way. And most importantly, we want to look at the content aggregation platform, similar to what Netflix does for movies, to do this for education, where anybody who has a meaningful developmental program that they want to be a part of this can now submit, and people can subscribe. So it now becomes a social, economic opportunity for people to proceed. So I think for us, the most important thing is making sure that all of the key stakeholders in the ecosystem can have access. All of the key stakeholders in the ecosystem will have the level of connectivity, the level of developmental support systems, whether it's through our data center, to make sure that all of these things are in place, and we can now start building and expanding the dialogue to bring other persons on board. So I think we're on our way. We're not there yet, but we know exactly what needs to be done to get us to the stage that we need.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't help but picking up when you mentioned content, and going forward, content is going to be king. Yeah. And this is why I want to bring you back in, Teacher Wilmot, because look here, we have so much rich intelligence that we can pull from senior teachers. I was going to say like yourself, but you know, you look so young. Experienced teachers, right? Who definitely would, you know, want to leave, as they leave the profession, ensure that they curate videos, instructional videos, you know, handbooks in digital format, for instance, so that the younger teachers coming up can use them as tools for, you know, imparting knowledge to the young ones.
And that is so significant, you know. I often talk about Miles Monroe, that quote, where he says the greatest place, the richest place on earth is a graveyard. And that's because there's so many of us who would have gathered so much over the years, but when we die, it dies with us. And so this is now the time when we capitalize on what we have. And I think it is now much easier with technology to do so. And so we have no excuse really. It's just a matter of finding the right people to do the right things. I think as Jamaicans, one of the most painful things is when you go online, you're looking for something that's so relevant to what you're doing. And there's so many great things happening in our classrooms, but we don't find it there. There's so many great topics that have been taught that you're in St. Thomas and you've done such a great job. But here I am in Mandeville or Montego Bay. This is the same information I need. And it's something that you've done, you've got it really good. But it was captured nowhere else but in your classroom. And so nobody else benefits from that. So it's such a salient point, and it's something that I really hope that we will, capitalize on and make sure that the great things that we're doing, because there's so many excellent teachers in Jamaica, there are so many excellent things happening in our classrooms, but unfortunately we're not capturing these to bring on.
Well, I would just add again to bring it back. These are fourth industrial revolution technologies. If we did not have this age that we're in right now, we wouldn't be doing this, right? We couldn't aggregate data, and we didn't have databases and places to store the level of information that we are collecting and keeping. So now with the future, with these technologies being more integrated into our education system, we are going to be able to do that kind of stuff. And data is going to be, and I say this every time I get a chance to, data and information will be worth more than oil and gas. It will be the most valuable commodity that we have on our planet. So with that in mind, we've got to figure out how are we going to harvest our information from our knowledge sources, how are we going to keep and store the information, and then how are we going to enable people to access it, search for it, find the information. And that's where people like Digicel, you do that on a daily basis, that's your specialization. So joining your capability with what our knowledge that we have in the ministry is going to be a very, very powerful combination. So fourth industrial revolution technologies, everything that we're talking about doing in the classroom is enabled by this new digital age.
I want to say that it's important that we value what we see here today and the importance of partnership and collaboration. You just alluded to that. All of these things are going to be possible. All of these things are going to be achieved because I don't have to replicate what is happening with Learning Jamaica. Rather, we can work together on ensuring that the teachers have the best kinds of things and creating real life experience, real hands-on experience. One of the things that we're trying to do in our setting is to convert a lab into a smart learning environment, in which case the teacher can create that real lived experience for him or herself, So not everything is scripted and is specified in a curriculum. They have space. We employed an educational technologist who will be there, dedicated time. It's unstructured time. It's on timetable time for them to get in and put their hands on and figure out with the technology. We're talking about technology that causes them, when they walk in, they're being identified through the software. They have personal tutoring experiences, so you don't necessarily have to have someone there, but then the support is all there. So it's creating a real lived experience for these.
Does this work at the early childhood level?
In different ways. What we've encouraged our teachers to do in terms of their activity plans is to share it using the internet, using, G Suite has a lot of possibilities in terms of sharing what you do, and they're able to see what is happening in other places, in other classrooms, and interact and do it in theirs. So we're encouraging these things, and it is happening at the early childhood level. We've partnered with Chase, and they're providing 4 smart rooms. They've provided so far 4 smart rooms in 4 of our infant schools, and it has everything. From the flooring being right, to the lighting being right, to the cooling system, everything, to encourage that kind of interaction and that kind of activity, that kind of awareness among our teachers, that kind of sharing what you're doing, and so it can translate into, you do it here, but I can share it over there. I can see what is happening in different parts of the world. I can see the interaction of children. My children can experience what children in different parts of the world are doing and seeing in the classroom space as it goes, and the children are interested, they're taking on to it, so the teachers have no choice but to inform themselves, be updated.
Get in the game.
Get in the game.
Get in the game.
All right, in terms of, I'm happy that we're having the dialogue, because just since this week, Erica and I spoke about how it is that we can actually create AR, or the augmented reality and virtual reality applications that will really speak to our Jamaican culture, because you may find it and you find it in other jurisdictions, but really we want it to be Jamaicanized, and so we want our students to be able to have that Jamaican experience. But in addition to that, I want to speak to Dr. McLean had a great idea and has a great idea about the flipped classroom and capturing the essence of what it is that our teachers, the content that they have, and capturing it and ensuring that our teachers, wherever they go across the world, if we have teachers who are migrating, that they will be able to, come into our classrooms in Jamaica and would be still be able to work with our teachers, still be able to impart that knowledge and that content that we need. Wherever they are in Jamaica, we have a classroom, they can connect to another classroom, and so we want to infuse that in our education system as well. But in terms of collaborating, last year we had our first technology day with our students, where we invited students from all over the island to come, and we also invited persons from the corporate world who came in and who actually showed careers. They also came in and they showed what is new and emerging. So we had persons who did robotics, persons who did coding, persons who came in and did virtual reality and so on. So it is our intention to expose our teachers and our students to what is out there, and to collaborate with anybody in Jamaica or the institutions that are actually doing it, and to bring them into an environment where we realize that yes, this is happening, but how it is. And so teachers too, teachers and students in that technology day were able to showcase what it is that they have been doing with the technology. So we had technology clubs that were on display. We had teachers who shared best practices and who presented through, and we also had education conferences, about 3 of them in the last 3 years. And so we've been doing very well in ensuring that we pull all the stakeholders together in a kind of environment in which they will be able to see and to make contribution to what is happening out there.
Davey, I think the most important point you made a while ago was on cultural preservation, and I think everyone here can agree on that regardless of the digital changes, we still impart the knowledge with the kind of cultural understandings and nuances that assist the learning process and experience. Very important. Atif.
Yeah, so I think for us as a group, this should be viewed as a launching pad and move as quickly as possible from having the dialogue and the consultations to getting actionable items done I'm from the private sector, so we move from idea generation. Our time to value space is very, very short. I know it's a little bit different with government, and we have to take into consideration those things. But if we can accelerate some of the things that need to be done, I think we'll start seeing the transformation taking place as quickly as possible. And we want to be a big part of that. As I said, not just as a corporate entity, but as somebody who has that social responsibility as a Jamaican and as a Caribbean citizen to make sure that our knowledge gap is shortened as quickly as possible, that we become a mecca in the knowledge process outsourcing space, that we start creating value around content aggregation, and that we start the curation process of making sure that those wonderful teachers who have done so well shaping the minds of our young people, that that knowledge is captured in a way that can be reused over and over and over for years to come.
Great, thank you very much, Atif. We'd love to hear from you. Certainly, we'd like to get, whoa! Please identify yourselves. That didn't take too long. Please identify yourselves as the microphone is being taken to you. Gentleman in the front. And then we'll come to you, sir. My good friend, my gosh, I forgot your name. How could you be my good friend and I forgot your name? From the Broadcasting Commission. Cardell Green. Yes, sir, please. Please stand.
Thank you very much. And my name is Edem Adubra. I'm the chief of the Secretariat of the UNESCO Teacher Task Force. Impressive. Two short questions. The good news in what I heard is that despite this progress, there will still be a human teacher in the classroom. Yeah. And my question is, every year we have our UNESCO Institute of Statistics announcing projection of teachers needed to fill the quantity gap in terms of teachers we need to support education. Do you think that with this project, teachers will still be there? Do we need to train as many teachers as we are projecting now? First question. Second question, in terms of the pervasiveness of the advances we have talked about, is it inclusively done, or there are pockets of Jamaica that are not picking up yet?
Oh, the first one on teachers, Teacher of the Year, Wilmot, and Dr. Phillips, I'd love to hear from you on this too.
All right, so we see where we have ongoing training. There's always training going on, and I think that we are so much better off today than we can say maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago in terms of where we are. Because what we're seeing coming from our teachers' colleges, our teachers are actually ready and off to a good start, where there's not a wide gap between the theory and the practice. And that's a really good thing, because you're not seeing a major gap between the experienced and inexperienced teachers being so obvious. And that's because, and here I have to say kudos to the training institutions, because here we see where some of the gaps are being filled. And so each year when we have a number of teachers coming out in the system, and of course we talk also about the importance of mentoring, where we understand it's not a competition, it's where we are complementing. So whereas teachers who've been in the system, we see younger ones coming out and there may be gaps, what do? We pull the hand. And may I quickly add that these teachers who are coming out, I don't think there will ever be enough, because I think Jamaican teachers are so good that the world wants us, right? We see the recruitment taking place all the time, and I think that we're doing something really good here, and we can only get better at it.
Dr. Phillips.
It is my thought that, again, because we said earlier we would not replace, and this is responding to your first question about do we need as many teachers, because it's complementary, right? The technology is to support what's happening in the classroom. Having the physical person as we said earlier, must still remain a priority in our country. And so for me, I believe, yes, we must continue to train all those teachers that are necessary for the various pockets, because you need people physically there. And the technology will only come to enhance what the teacher is doing. Again, never to replace. So there's need for that. With respect to if there's some parts of Jamaica, I think e-learning is probably in a better position to say that. But it's conceivable, of course, that there's some rural districts that have not yet been brought forward. And it means that it is in our interest to consider when you train a teacher in this high-tech environment and they're going to get a job in community X, all down in rural where they have less than ideal conditions, how will they then adapt that and make that meaningful for the students there? So we still have to balance.
All right, so let me speak to, I'm going to address both issues, but I think that the technology is ready to make super teachers. It is not to replace them, it is to make them exceptional teachers who have all of this content knowledge, who have all of this technology at their fingertips, and how it is that they can actually become a super teacher in that classroom environment. In addition to that, in terms of this, if there are pockets of Jamaica rural schools that we have not yet addressed, in the high school project, we basically went into all the high schools across the island. Whether they were rural or urban, we addressed all of them. For the Tablets in School project, for the pilot project, we sampled schools from all different rural and urban areas. And when we go into a school, we carry everything. So we give them the infrastructure. So whether it is the connectivity, we give them the hardware and the software. We also give them the training. So we give them a full package. In terms of so we are rolling out now, and it is our intention to roll out to all primary schools regardless of their location. So we've started rolling out in quite a few real deep rural, as we call them in Jamaica, schools, and we have been seeing the different reactions. So one of the schools that we went to, that you saw on the video, is a rural school, and they were a part of the Tablets in School project, in which we gave them all the infrastructure that they need. They got smart board, they got just about everything that they would need to incorporate the technology. So we have been addressing the different pockets, not on a whole scale basis, but we take it one phase at a time.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the telco provider, we're aware of there are some challenges with connectivity at some of the schools, and a part of the plan, which I think is quite smart, is to actually localize the information sharing at some of the school campuses to augment the gap that they may have in terms of connecting to the main site. So that is already a part of the overall structure. We're also investing in some new technologies, which is being used quite widely in places like I've been to Malaysia and places like Indonesia that have multiple locations and have challenges, connectivity challenges, where there are different wireless technologies that can leverage our existing infrastructure and provide connectivity, and we're working with the different government agencies as well as part of that strategy. So we feel that even though there might be a small gap now in terms of access, we're augmenting that by localizing where we have that, with a plan to bring them on board as quickly as possible, because we've identified those technologies and they're being rolled out.
Great.
Sure. Just one last comment for me as the technology futurist on the panel. So I would say that for the next 30 years, 35 years, we're good. In terms of human teachers, we'll still need them, right? But I think we still have to know that there is going to be a possibility in the future that the role of teachers in the classroom will actually change, right? We're not going to be teaching necessarily anymore. We are going to be facilitators of learning. So we can't be up here blind not to think that we are on this pedestal and we're going to continue to be here. I think as the human engineers, which I'm calling you guys that because that's an important title, you got to figure out what your role is going to be in the future, because the technology is coming and that may mean that your role will change.
Absolutely.
Because the younger children, you need the interaction. We don't have enough. You need the face-to-face, skin-to-skin interaction. As the child gets older, the teacher now has to redefine what is done to meet the need of the child and the curiosity and all of that. So yes, in the early stages, yes, you need more. We don't have enough, so we need more. But as the child grows older, the roles change because of the needs of the individual children.
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you very much. My name is Dennis Signolo from Education International. And thank you to all the panelists. And I particularly like the point which has been emphasized again and again, that technology cannot replace a teacher. That's fundamental. It's a fundamental principle that should come from this conference, that we embrace technologies, but they should not replace teachers. So technology is a tool at the hands of a teacher. It can facilitate access to information, for example, sharing of information, collaboration among teachers, and so forth and so on. But human interaction is very important. That's what makes us human. When talking about values, you cannot get values through a machine. So that reminds me of the concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu, that's the African concept of what makes us human. The fact that we relate with one another, we talk to each other, we love each other. Machines cannot love. So that's why it's important to emphasize the relational aspect of education. Having said that, I want to stress that when talking about technology, let's also talk about the dangers of technology. Cyberbullying, for example, fake news, etc., etc. Those are important aspects that should be brought to the attention of our teachers and our students. I will end with a question, two questions actually. Generally, in our studies all over the world, teachers tend to lag behind in terms of digital skills. What is the situation like in Jamaica? And what are you doing to deal with that? And then secondly, I'm thinking about the rest of the countries around the world and how you would make these efforts happen. It's not going to be easy. If you're thinking about many countries in Asia, many countries in Africa, where they don't have the basics, where in some instances children are still learning under trees, where class size in some instances 150, where there is no electricity, there is no internet whatsoever. It's going to be a huge challenge. How do we then use this experience in those very challenging circumstances?
Very good point, and I'm happy that you mentioned. I'm going to answer the last question first, may I? Right. During our interaction with our students, and I think 2 years ago, we came up with the concept of what we call tech without tech. And the concept of tech without tech is really incorporating the technology ideas, the concept, the terminology, in an environment where there's no technology at all. So you give the student a kind of experience, whether it is through worksheets, they probably can have a Twitter worksheet or a Snapchat worksheet, or you may have a board that resembles a smart board, that the student and the teacher will have that kind of interaction, that it doesn't require hardware for you to have that kind of interaction, but that they are able to interact and to infuse that in their lesson without the physical hardware and software. So if there's no electricity, a student can still have a kind of technology experience where they are exposed to what is out there without the hardware. In terms of if it is that we have teachers who are lagging behind, yes, we do. We do have teachers who, regardless of the training, there are teachers who will say that we are not going to be using the technology. So that is where the technology coaches come in. We are training approximately 63 additional persons who will be technology integration specialists, who will provide additional support to all of those teachers who are really lagging behind in terms of the incorporation of the technology, because we do understand that there is a significant challenge as it relates to that.
Thank you. Sir, you had a question?
Hello.
And then we'll come to you.
My name is Isaac McCullough. I'm acting CEO of eLearning Jamaica. First, I want to say wonderful discussion. I think it was mentioned earlier, but I want to bring attention to the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is funding. Broadband is not cheap. We have challenges in terms of the time frame in which we would want to roll out the project island-wide. And funding is at the root of all of it. I mean, sure, we need to get into partnership with the telco providers to let them know that this is a national effort and there are economies of scale here to take advantage of, but you're still going to need funding. Now, to the funding possibilities, I would want to say that this is an investment, right? It's a national investment, an investment in the future. An esteemed colleague from Singapore indicated that education was the second highest expenditure in their national budget. It was second only to defense, all right? I want to remind the people who can provide funding that we are not just preparing our children to survive and thrive in the fourth industrial revolution, but we are creating those persons who will be creating the fifth industrial revolution.
Very good point. Very good point. Atif, I'd love to hear this.
I think that's perhaps that's an excellent segue for that. And I started out by saying a country's most important resource is their human capital. And human capital starts from developing and shaping the minds of our young people. As it relates to the investment that is required, telcos around the world normally get a return on investment over 25 years. It's a long-term investment, it's very costly, and it's significant. What we have done and we have said to the government is, we're willing to partner with you, and that's where the PPPs will come in, the public-private partnerships, where the government has certain assets, or they have the wherewithal to do certain things, and that would catalyze the kinds of investments that we can make in that space to ensure that there's universal access for everybody. So we're open, a lot of those discussions are actually going on behind the scenes, and I think it's useful for a number of the more influential agencies to come on board as quickly as possible, because that will accelerate the kind of outcomes that we want. But again, as an employee of Digicel, my primary responsibility is the social responsibility that we share to develop our nation. My secondary responsibility is to my job. And I think I can do both. Both of them are not mutually exclusive. So even though I'm being paid by Digicel, I want to see Jamaica succeed, because without a successful Jamaica, there's no Digicel. So I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure that the conversations that we're having are aligned with the outcomes that we want. And we want to make sure that every single child in Jamaica is educated, or at least have access to an education. And we will continue to play a role in that regard.
Thanks, Atif. Cordell Green.
Thank you. I just want to heed the caution of the executive director of the CMU. Her last intervention, she didn't quite say it in express terms, but I think she is framing the fourth industrial revolution also as an era of disruption. Models, institutions, meanings. And so the intervention of our colleague at the front is key. What is going to determine our direction of travel to the fourth industrial revolution is less about the technology and more about morals and values and ethics. What is the nature of the fourth industrial revolution we want for Jamaica, where the world is not going to be homogeneous? And so our educators need to be thinking very, very deeply about that. If we do not, we are going to benefit from a lot of wealth, but we will continue to be rule takers, not rule makers. And I want to conclude by saying this. The Industrial Revolution that came from the 18th into the 19th century generated a lot of wealth. It also sowed the seeds for two world wars and a major revolution. So we cannot take lightly the disruptive nature and the question of ethics and values. For example, ethical algorithms. Are the educators thinking about this?
So, very good point, and that's strongly endorsed. I want to say that my knowledge of the content is that there is a strong emphasis on ethics and values, but also security and safety and morals. Again, that cannot be taught. And this is a plug for why it is that computers will not replace the human, because humans are the ones who can understand that, define that, and internalize that. So that's also a key role that the teacher, from the human perspective, will have to be here to carry on.
Yeah, thank you for eloquently summarizing what was in my head. I appreciate that. I do believe that, okay, so some of the jobs are never going to go away, but we are going to need more sociologists. We're going to need more psychologists. We're going to need more people that, as you said, can interpret the ethical nature of the technology and make sure that it's done, you know, that we are using it for the good of the world and society. So those are the types of people that we'll need to be able to develop more, and we'll need more sociological teachers, psychological teachers, those types of people.
Donna Powell-Wilson from Jamaica. Thanks to the panel for such insightful discussion, and to the persons who would have made comments earlier. I want to submit to us another perspective, or to encourage another perspective for Education 4.0, in particular in our classrooms and to our teachers. What we should be looking at is to creating and enhancing active lifelong learners. I am not sure what the technology will be 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What I know is that I need the skills. The students that I have, they need the skills to respond to what will happen at that time. So we need learners who are agile. We need learners to be flexible. And I think the representative from e-learning mentioned some of the skills that are in the mindset training, which I would want to encourage that we continue along that path. If we're looking at Education 4.0, we can't just necessarily put the technology and the skills in place. We have to look at our curricula and our assessments. So we cannot have new methods of teaching, but we have the same old curricula that's not tailored to meet the needs of the students, and the same way of assessing them, where what they would have learned 15 weeks ago, we try to see how much they remember. So Education 4.0 requires that we tailor our curriculum, we revisit our assessment, we look for learners who are agile, and our facilitators, which we now call teachers, should be mentors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good observation. Let me just take your question real quick. I ignored you there. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, thank you, everyone. Morning. My name is Karen Henry. I'm from the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts. So a lot of very important points raised. I couldn't see my colleague here, but you echoed a lot of what I wanted to say in terms of, you know, the disruptive nature of what it is that we're about. Within this time, a lot of the teachers now currently in the classroom will tell you that a lot of the things that you have spoken about here, it's already happening. So what is the difference that's going to make this a fourth industrial revolution? We talk a lot about student-centeredness and learner-centeredness. Where is it that we're hearing the voice of the learners of the type of experiences that they need to have in order to fit into this world that now exists and what they're going to create for this fifth industrial revolution? We have a thing that we're going internationally called STEM. So not because I'm with within the arts that I'm saying that in Jamaica we are also talking about STEAM. Where's the A? Because within the arts it talks about the personal, the interpersonal, the intrapersonal, the cultural significance of what it is that we are doing. Because at the end of the day, it's not content driven, but experience driven, and it's about what we are creating. The type of student we're creating is not just based on skills and knowledge of that. It is the type that can transfer, connect, create, innovate. How do we do that with technology? And for teachers, they're now the disruptive. You have a set curriculum of examinations that you're trying to get your students to sit. You have a short time within which to do it. And then you have this technology now that you're also asking them to use. In what way? I need to finish my curriculum, and I need to finish it quickly so my students can be successful. How do I fit that now within this framework? So I would say for teachers, they're looking for the ability to facilitate. The real facilitation, where their students can gain experiences. Now within, and I'll be very quickly because I know we're at time, but how can we as teachers now sit down with students, with policymakers to look at all the parts to create the kind of environment through the technology? We like to talk. How are we going to talk with the technology when we're in remote areas? What is the best way for us to talk that is culturally relevant to this space? It's not going to be the same for everywhere in the world. And we can have sharings and experiences. So it's some of those things that I would like to hear within this fourth industrial revolution coming out.
There's a part that I must answer, and that is when you talked about teaching the curriculum and adding the technology. And I'd say to every teacher, never teach a curriculum, teach the student. When we get to that point where we understand that we're teaching the students and not focusing on the curriculum, everything else falls into place. The day we try to complete that curriculum to meet a requirement is the day we fail. We set ourselves up to fail. And so we have to look at the big picture. Each student is that important that it doesn't matter if 99% got it. Who am I leaving behind, and what am I going? We talk about the individualized teaching where no child is left behind, and the focus has to be the child, whichever student comes before you, not that of, because you can complete a curriculum and that student walks away with a GPA of 4.0 or a grade 1, but have you really taught the student?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. I'm very sorry. You came from far, it seems. I have to oblige. I'm sorry. I'm in trouble. I'm in real trouble for going over time. May I? Yes? No, we can't. Sorry. All right? We'll have to leave it there. Rich discussion. Thank you very much, panelists. Lots to talk about. Certainly, you can meet with the panelists as they make their way outside and for a coffee break, I believe now, and talk some more about this very interesting discussion on Education 4.0.
For the coffee break, yes.
That's it.
Thank you very, very much. Jamaica is really proud of you this morning. Thank you. You have done so well. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am just here to remind you of a few domestic matters. Is a person from IDB here who wants to present a book or something? Is that person here? No. All right. So we'll move on. Tomorrow's session, tomorrow's an all-day session, lots of knowledge and fun. The schools that you will be going to in the morning are very interesting schools. They were especially selected for you. 2 schools are outside of the parish of St. James. They're in Trelawney. Holland High and what's the one in... What's the school? Dr. Grace? Where's she? Yes. Anyway, they're both in Trelawney. William Nib, that's it. Holland High and William Knibb High. They're interesting schools. They're in Trelawney, and you'll have your lunch in Trelawney. Those people who go to those schools. Then we have the other schools in St. James, all of them selected with special reasons. The primary school has a beautiful museum on Jamaica. It's in the heart of the primary school. So I'm asking you to balance the group. I notice most people want to go to the Teachers College. Already that is full. So we have 30 people going to the Teachers College. Now, after you have visited the schools and have your lunch, in fact, there's a lunch on concert. What's the school? For those in St. James, yes, you will go to Sam Sharp for lunch, and you'll enjoy it. Now, after that, we are going to take you to the craft market so that you can buy all the little things that you would like to take home. Some Bob Marley memoirs, every little thing that you'd like to take home. Beautiful craft you will see. We are going to slow down the day after that. For the closing ceremony, you will be at the Rose Hall Great House that has a major duppy. You know what's duppy? Yes, but we are keeping her safe, so she's only going to give you good luck and blessings and so on. There we'll have the closing ceremony, and then we'll have a taste of Jamaica, and we do not want you to miss that. I'm not saying I'm going to give you a lot of rum, but you will certainly have coconut water. Definitely a taste of Jamaica. So please, don't go away. Ensure that you enjoy it. It was set up for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Winsome. I think we have a housekeeping announcement, but before that, on behalf of all the international participants and the International Teacher Task Force Steering Committee and co-chairs, I would like to extend our gratitude to you for having enriched our deliberations with such a foresight, such an advanced view of what it will take to reinforce and renew our education workforce.
I'm not saying I'm going to give you a lot of rum. But you will certainly have coconut water.
The next session
definitely
will
a taste of Jamaica. So please don't
of
go away.
Ensure
that you
enjoy
it. It was set up for you.
So we welcome everybody to be here as observer. Thank you.
But
we would like the middle seat here. That is we have length a housekeeping announcement booth, but before that, to be occupied to be reserved for task force participants who will have the right to take Teacher Task Force Steering Committee and to speak on behalf